Our next speaker and first keynote of that conference is by Denny Vrandečić, who many of you will know, of course, long-time contributor to Semantic MediaWiki, one of the people starting it, of course, and now technical director, I think is the correct title of the Wikidata project in Berlin, which he will tell us about. Great pleasure to have you.
Thank you. There's a question first. The microphone is only for the recording. I have to speak up myself. So this is a very good point. I forget to speak up. If I don't speak loud enough, this is especially for the last rows, wave or do something like that, it's fine. Yeah. There's another microphone? Okay, so this works fine. This one right for the, okay. Okay, so, good. Thanks for the welcome, York. Thanks for the introduction, Marcus. And thanks to everyone for being here. It's always a pleasure to see this much interest in Semantic MediaWiki. I'm going to talk today about Wikidata, which is a very related project, as you will see in a second. If you would take Wikipedia and for every geotagged article, make a point on a map, what you would get is a pretty good map of the populated world. So these are all Wikipedia articles. Basically, Wikipedia covers every single village in the world. It has the population for every city in the world, and it has the mayors of those cities. So since it has all this information, it should obviously be possible to ask something like the list of the 10 world biggest cities with female mayors, right? This was my selling point for Semantic MediaWiki for a long time, so you probably know the answer. No, you can't ask Wikipedia that. You simply have no way to do it. Wikipedia does have a method to answer this kind of questions, which is by lists. So basically what Wikipedia has is a lot of lists that look like this: list of countries by nominal GDP, list of wartime cross-dressers, list of animals with fraudulent diploma, or list of inventors killed by their own inventions. A lot of those lists that are around in Wikipedia. And those lists are not only in the English Wikipedia. We actually have translations of this list in Spanish, Portuguese, French, Polish, Hungarian, Finnish, Japanese. And all of these lists are created manually in each of those Wikipedias. All of those lists are maintained manually in each of those Wikipedias. If someone with a bad will goes to the Hungarian Wikipedia and adds an inventor who was not killed by his own invention to this list, it won't be noticed that fast, probably. We know the answer to this problem. It's Semantic MediaWiki. Using Semantic MediaWiki, we could actually answer this thing. So you know the software, you know this, we could do this actually. So why don't we just take Wikipedia and use Semantic MediaWiki with it? Because that's what we wanted to do all the time, right? Well, I give you 3 answers for these questions. The first answer is centralization. To understand this, I first talk a little bit about Wikimedia Commons. Wikimedia Commons is a top 200 website in its own right. I think it's around place 120 or something like that. It has 14 million media files that are all free to use. And those images are beautiful that you can find there. So if anyone tells you that free stuff is not worth it, well, let them believe that and enjoy. Wikimedia Commons started as a central repository of images where the Wikipedias could have access to. So basically, it used to be that every Wikipedia has a picture of the President of the United States, has a picture of a city, for example, and they were copied like all over these Wikipedias. And since there are more than 200 Wikipedias, that's not only a big waste of server space, it's also a big waste of maintenance effort, because all these pictures have to be maintained, all these pictures have to be checked if there may be copyright violations, and so on and so on. So instead of having those pictures locally in each Wikipedia, the idea was to use a central repository where the Wikipedias could access to and have one place for all the images. And the same repository is also used by many external websites. So Wikimedia Commons is reusable. If you have a MediaWiki, you can actually turn on in your local setting, just Insta Commons on, and you can immediately use images from Wikimedia Commons in your own wiki as well. And you know that they are all free to use in your area. So one possibility could have been to use each Wikipedia as its own Semantic MediaWiki. But this means that each of the Wikipedias would have to maintain the structured knowledge inside of their own wiki. And you can't share this knowledge from the English Wikipedia, for example, to a much smaller Wikipedia like the Somali Wikipedia, where you don't have the same amount of people actually working on it. So instead of having each Wikipedia being its own Semantic MediaWiki, the idea was to use one central data repository that all of the Wikipedias can access to, and whenever someone updates inside, it will be updated for all of the Wikipedias. Second answer, internationalization. So Wikipedia is a highly internationalized project. Jörg mentioned Facebook earlier. They have 70 languages, and he found it pretty impressive. We have 280 languages for the Wikipedias, and we're growing on those number of languages. But to be honest, the coverage is very different for those languages. So English, French, German, Dutch, they all have more than 1 million articles. There are 40 other languages that have more than 100,000 articles, but more than 200 languages actually have less than that. And it's not a complete encyclopedia, it's just the start of an encyclopedia when you have a few thousand articles. If you think about it, there are 250 countries in the world. We quickly get to a few thousand articles if you add like their presidents, if you like important people, if you like important people history. No way that an encyclopedia with 10,000 articles can be considered complete or even pretty useful. To visualize this difference, you remember the map that I showed you in the beginning. So this is the English Wikipedia and its coverage of the world. As soon as you go even to the French Wikipedia, which still has more than 1 million articles, it looks much different. We have a much less coverage of the world. You see that Africa is basically black, South America as well. And this is French, still more than 1 million articles. If you move to Catalan, well, there are certain spots that are well covered, but that's basically it. Italian, same story. Greek, even worse than that. Basically, you see that they have a certain focus in their Wikipedia. Russian, you can't almost recognize anything. Chinese as well. So the languages have extremely different coverage inside of Wikipedia. And saying, you know, we have 280 languages, well, it sounds better than it really is, because many of those languages actually don't provide enough data to be used for encyclopedias. And what we often have is that they actually go to the second language Wikipedia, like English or Russian or French, to actually access the information there instead of using the actual native language. Semantic MediaWiki and internationalization is not Well, internationalization not the strongest point of Semantic MediaWiki, let's put it this way. We don't have really built-in functionality for this. Is because MediaWiki itself, it doesn't have really built-in functionality for this. If you go to multilingual wikis like Commons, actually, you will see that it's a big struggle to deal with different languages there. And Semantic MediaWikis and MediaWikis always assume to be basically one language. You can build it with internationalization, but really it's just some kind sort of thing. The only big project that I know of that actually has really good working internationalization is the AIFB portal, and we put a lot of effort into that, making this installable. And basically it's all template based, and if we're honest, I think it's completely unmaintainable. I hope Benedict Basel, I'm not offending anyone here, but the templates that I use here are really, really hard to actually maintain and reuse. And internationalization didn't help with that at all. It really made the thing very troublesome, but it works. So in Wikidata, actually, what we will, sorry, I'll try to be back in a second. Okay. That's my, okay. So, in Wikidata, sorry for the break. In Wikidata, instead, what we will have is actually a view that looks a lot like semantic forms. Basically, most of the entrances are form-based, but each of those things, each of the properties, each of the values are basically entities in their own right, which can be simply translated to another language. So as long as we have labels for those items, for these properties, we can simply switch over the language of the user interface. This means you have one single database, and you edit it in any language, and it will be immediately available in the other language because they're all built on the same structured data beneath. And all of the Wikipedias would access this one structured data set. So internationalization basically is really built in what we do in Wikibase, and this was one of the big efforts that we did in the first few months. The third answer is reification. So in Semantic MediaWiki, you can make a statement like this: Semantic MediaWiki extends MediaWiki. And basically, this is a statement. This is how the world is. And if you ask for what extends MediaWiki, you will get the answer. Well, Semantic MediaWiki does. Now, the thing is, let's put it this way. In Wikipedia, there are sometimes people who disagree. So this is the history of an article in Wikipedia. What you see here, every different color represents a different author. And the history goes from the past to the future on the right-hand side, and whatever an author has written, this part of the text is colored in this in the color. So you see, in the beginning, the article is pretty steady growing, and everything looks nice. But then you see this weird zigzag line. What's going on here? Basically, at this point, someone has deleted the light gray's contribution from the article, and so this was removed, and the article got smaller. The next edit was, it was reinstated, was put again back in. Then it was deleted again. It was put back in. It was deleted again. So this is how discussions on Wikipedia often go. You have very mature people discussing the benefits of a paragraph and coming to agreement on it on the end. But basically what it meant like was, for a while it was deleted, and this is this classic edit war. And then in the end, actually, it was moved to the end and added there and replaced. So we did have in the end a conclusion. Now this is the highly contentious article on chocolate. And the paragraph that was removed there was the effects of chocolate on health of humans. So you can imagine, if this is chocolate, what does evolution look like? The thing is, everyone wants the truth. But the truth is a very, very complicated thing. And we can't just nail it down. And in assuming to agree on it is not very easy or very believable. The different facets of the truth, to capture it in one place and to say, this is the population of Mumbai. Well, that's a hard thing. And instead of actually trying that, especially in a multilingual wiki where people may be not even able to discuss stuff in one language, what we will use is something that we developed in the research project Render. Basically, the idea of a secondary database. Instead of having data, instead of having primary data about the city, about any item, we actually copy the statements. We keep different statements, even contradictory ones, inside the database and have sources for each of those facts. And this can reflect the diversity about the items that we have there. So basically, in short, Wikidata is not about the truth. Just as Wikipedia is not about the truth. Wikidata is about statements that have reliable sources and that are given here with the sources, and then you can decide what you want to believe in or not. So this is how a statement looks like. This is the basic idea of the data model in Wikidata. Basically, we have an article, for example, about Mumbai, and we say, oh, this is population, and then we have two very different numbers, like 12.5 million there and 20.5 million there. And the first number is actually coming from the official statistics institute in India, saying, this is the census that we did of the city, and this is the number we got. The second number is the estimate by the United Nations, saying, in reality, the people, actually, there live much more people there. And now you can decide which number you want to take for your project, which number you want to take for the system. You have all the metadata. You have also qualifiers for those things. For example, saying at what point of time was this number deemed valid, or maybe further qualifiers, like the first one was a census, the second one was actually for the whole metropolitan area, and this might explain a lot of the difference already, and so on. Instead of having a simple triple as we did in Semantic MediaWiki, saying Semantic MediaWiki extends MediaWiki, we have a slightly more elaborate data model here to represent this kind of second-hand facts. So the three reasons for not using Semantic MediaWiki for a project like Wikidata is basically centralization of the whole effort, internationalization of the project, and reification of the statements so that we can actually represent diversity. Okay, so Wikidata, how does it go itself? We have a team at Wikimedia Germany in Berlin, really great people. Some of them are here today, wave people. So we have Daniel Werner back in the background. We have Daniel Kienzler in the front here. Lydia is next to her. You've probably seen her emails somewhere because she's basically all over the place. And Jeroen is, as usual, late and probably sleeping in his bed. But he will appear later, I hope, very much so. So we have a great team assembled in Berlin. And we have a lot of experience also coming from Semantic MediaWiki, coming from MediaWiki, and we have several research that they're actually putting into the development of Wikidata. Wikidata got external donors, so we managed to find people to actually give us 1.3 million euros to make it happen. So the Institute of Artificial Intelligence, the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, and Google, who are funding the first year of development of Wikidata. How will it happen? We have a project plan going for 1 year. So we started this April, and the plan is to go until March. And we have separated the development into 3 phases. The first phase is about language links. The second phase about info boxes, and the third phase about inline queries. So I go through them in each by one. So language links. If you go to Wikipedia, you probably have noticed a long list of language links on the left-hand side of an article. So especially if you are on popular articles like Germany or something, there are literally hundreds of those language links of every single article. Now the thing is, where do these links actually come from? And they come from the local wiki text. So if you click on edit on any of those articles in any of those languages, you click on edit, what you will see at some point is this long list of articles. And they're basically repeated on all of those different languages. So you have them on the English, you have them on the German, and on all the other languages as well. Again and again and again and again, yeah, and so on. You know the drill. So all these lists are given on all these things. And instead of having them repeated literally 200 times, instead of having them repeated literally 200 times, Wikidata will put them in one common place and have a slightly nicer interface to edit them. So basically the idea is that we have items on Wikidata representing the topic of those Wikipedia articles, and then saying which Wikipedia articles actually link to this specific item. And then the actual article goes to Wikidata and tells me, hey, I'm Berlin on the English Wikipedia, and what are my interwiki links? And Wikidata gives the interwiki links back, and then the article can render those on the left-hand side, and you can drop those things. We did some measurements, and actually for some of the Wikipedias, removing the language links from the wiki text will reduce the size by more than 50%, which means that the maintenance costs for those Wikipedias will go down drastically. Right now, if you go, for example, to one of the smaller Wikipedias, like Somali, for example, and click on a random article and look at the history of this article, what you basically will see is that the last 50 edits have been done by bots only, and you don't see another human being working on this article, which doesn't give you the social sense of being in a social project, and which doesn't really help you with building it and getting a community out of it. This is, I believe personally, one of the reasons why the smaller language Wikipedias don't grow as fast as they could. Okay. But we'll see if this theory is right. So the first phase, as I said, of Wikidata is to centralize the language links. We're basically done with this phase. We're currently working on review and deployment, and we hope to have this rather sooner than later to be live on the Wikipedias. The second phase, going from the left side of the article to the right side of the article, where we have the info boxes. So the info boxes tell the same story. All the info boxes are written again and again in each of the Wikipedias. So if you click on edit, what you see will be the call to a template, and all these values are entered in a kind of cryptic syntax on these articles. So basically what happens if you are on an article of an info box and you click on edit is to first see this kind of syntax, which means that most of the people who are not already Wikipedia editors actually get scared of editing Wikipedia and cancel the thing. Canceling an edit is the most often happening event after you click on edit, not saving or changing anything, just basically seeing this and saying, right, no, I won't. So with Wikidata, we basically can get rid of a lot of these syntaxes in the beginning. The info boxes would, instead of being instantiated with all these values, actually call to Wikidata and ask them, wait, what is actually the president of Germany? What is actually the continent Germany? What's the population? Because all this data is there now in Wikidata. And once we change it, once we change something, it will be propagated for all the different Wikipedias, which also means that if you are in a small language like Uzbek or Croatian, well, not that small, but still, you can actually create articles for French cities, and you know that the population will keep up to date, because they're just accessing the one place where everyone else is accessing to, where also the French editors are accessing it to, and where they will be updating it. And the third phase, once this is done, is inline queries. Basically, well, you know what inline queries are. They're there in Semantic MediaWiki, and Markus showed them to you yesterday. Basically, they are queries that take the data inside the wiki and create nice visualizations in one place that answer a question. The replacement for this, for many of those lists that I showed you in the beginning. And this leads me to the places where Wikidata and Semantic MediaWiki will actually also share code. So on the one hand, Wikidata and Semantic MediaWiki will and do share experience, because we have common developers, we have people who have been working on both projects and so on, and we know what went good and what didn't go that well. But we also will actually share code, and one of the places we want to share code is the semantic result formats. So Semantic MediaWiki already has tons of really beautiful results formats, and we want to be able to reuse them. And we want to make it an extension that can be common to both Wikidata and to Semantic MediaWiki. So once you write and result formats for Semantic MediaWiki, it would also be available in Wikidata and the other way around. So there we can share a lot of developer, we can share a lot of code and have new things being developed on top of that. One way this could be possibly based is on Spark, which is a library that I think also will be presented here, right, Benedict? You're presenting Spark design? Okay, so he will present it, and which would even allow that those result formats would be used without a wiki in the back end. So basically, if you have any website, you could just make a query against a Semantic MediaWiki or against Wikidata and display the results on your website and have them reusable everywhere. The other place where we want to share code are on the bottom level. It's data values. So things like points in time, geo-coordinates, values with units, and so on, could all share the same code. And actually, so in Wikidata, what we did is that those data values are not part of our code base, but rather a separate extension, which is even written independent of MediaWiki again, so you can use it in any PHP project, having extensions for parsers and formatters, turning numbers of units into common representations that could be shared. And we are currently using it in Wikidata. We hope that we will also be using them in Semantic MediaWiki at some point. And but I have to look to Marcus and Jeroen for that. He nods. Okay. That's good. So basically, I think that Semantic MediaWiki and Wikidata can actually live together and share the places. They have very different use cases. Semantic MediaWiki will remain more powerful than Wikidata is. Will remain will have features that Wikidata never will have exhibit. On the other hand, Wikidata will have some advantages that are very hard to replicate in Semantic MediaWiki. So I think they simply have very different goals and does not be thought of as struggling with each other in any sense. To conclude, the goals of Wikidata is to create an editable common source for data, which provides freely reusable, machine-readable access to all this data for everyone in the world. It turns to allow for much smaller contribution sizes than Wikipedia currently does. So if you have instead of writing full articles in Wikipedia, instead of writing full sentences, your contribution size could be just to entering the population of a city, could be just to check if a reference is actually correct, could be just to provide the label for a country in your own language, and so on. So the contribution size goes much further down. We provide APIs to many of those things, so that we hope that there will be applications, there will be websites who will actually help us with getting this kind of information even smoother into the Wikidata system. It will also be a system where humans and bots can collaborate much more tightly, because currently working with Wikitext with a bot, well, it's possible, but it's quite a pain. And with Wikidata, this should improve much, because we will provide API calls for all these things like setting a label, like checking a reference, and so on. And finally, we hope to start with all the 280 languages of Wikipedia from day one, so that we will provide a whole system for everyone in the native language. Thank you for your attention. If you have more questions, you can find here many contacts. You can talk to us, we're here, and we'll answer questions. And I hope you learned something here. Thanks. I think we still have time for questions, if there are any. Okay. Okay, I will do that. So the question was, how does the editing process look like? Do I just go to Wikipedia? Do I have to edit it on Wikidata? In the first version, you would basically go to Wikidata, but we want to introduce the possibility to edit directly from the Wikipedias or even other pages. Basically, to have widgets that allow you to just click next to the value on the info box, for example, and get a little pop-up box where you can actually change the value and so on. But the but this is if we have the time for that, and if we get a good process for that, because this is not completely trivial how to do that. I think that Daniel wants to add something. Okay. Actually, you should, I guess.
Okay. It's not entirely trivial, not only because of technical reasons, but also conceptually. If I want to change the population, I usually what value do I actually change, right? If there are 5 values from 3 different times and 4 different sources, what does it even mean to change the value? Usually, you don't want to change the value; you want to add one. And creating a user interface that is not confusing to people who have never thought about this and just want to change the value is quite a challenge. So it's actually a pretty interesting project, but that's one of the things that makes it not quite trivial.
But we would like to keep the friction as low as possible, basically, for Wikipedia editors. But in the end, it might turn out that they have to go to Wikidata. We'll see what happens. Yuri?
Yeah. Is it possible that during the extraction of the data from the actual Wikipedia, you will have contradictions between different informations in different language sections of Wikipedia?
So I would be surprised if there were no contradiction, but I first have to say that we don't regard it as the job of the Wikidata development team to extract this data in the first place. So we will start with an empty wiki, basically, where we will let people go and do the data entry. If someone writes a bot to extract this data from the Wikipedias and enter it into Wikidata, then they have to agree with the Wikidata community if this is a reasonable way to actually add the data or not. As the development team, we won't stop them. We might even help them with saying like what to use in the API and so on. But we make a very strict separation between questions of content, which is a job for the Wikidata community, and questions of the technical architecture, which we are dealing with. And so if someone does this extraction, it's up to the community to decide what to do with that. To add one thing about this, so what you often cannot extract actually from the Wikipedias, easily at least, are the sources, for example. And there might be people who would say, oh, we would actually like to have sources in this place or something like this. Or what you will have a hard time is figuring out things like the qualifiers for this. Well, you can do it, but it often becomes actually probably so manual and so detailed that just typing it into the system might be faster than writing the scripts for that. We'll have to see how it works. We'll have to see how it happens. But as said, this is actually pushed to the community. We're not doing that from our side.
Yeah, we also have a question from the remover.
Okay.
Can Shoten ask, will the data also publish as RDFA?
So we will publish the data as RDF. We will publish the data in a JSON format. I am not sure about the benefits of publishing the data in RDFA. And it is not on our priority list to add this kind of export. Because in the end, if you publish in RDFA, it means that you put the RDF annotations into the HTML, which makes it just harder for any parser to get them out again. So if you have already the structured ways just to publish the RDF, just to publish the data in other ways, why also publish it in RDFA? So let's see. Well, you need an HTML page to convert it to. So yeah, I'm not sure about the benefits of that. I know that a lot of people would like it, but no one has given me a reason why they would like it, basically. And if someone convinces me, you have to think on the other side that it adds maintenance effort to the software base. It adds further features that have to be developed. Someone has to pay for those developments. And the question is if this is the most efficient way to use our time and development effort, or if we should, instead of having another export format, more focus on, for example, having more data types and having more result printers and so on. Yeah, but if you manage to come up with a reason why we really should publish RDFA, I'm willing to listen. Good. We have a question here. Michael?
My question is about publishing in RDFA is one thing, but publishing the data and all is a good idea, but if everything is really fine, it's really hard to query and make use of it. Any intentions of publishing a non-refined version or something which is useful right now?
I'm just repeating for the recording. The question was if we intend to publish a simple form of the RDF without the reification with the statements and so on. It is possible you lose information, obviously. So it is possible if you accept that you will lose some information. I think that's something that another service on top of Wikidata should probably do, and where we shouldn't put our resources into it. There would be a lot of discussions of how to do this right. There would be stuff which I'm not sure that we should resolve. I think, for example, that this would be something that Wikipedia could be doing, since their task of extracting the data from the info boxes would kind of go away. They could actually extract simple RDF data that is more similar to what they already have, that is more easier to enable to transition from the current system to the future system. And this is something that they could probably do as better than actually we could. And again, if we would do it, it would add future maintenance effort for this kind of things. It would make the further development harder, and we would make to have a lot of decisions that are not trivial at all, and where we would like to keep our hands off. I mean, one of the reasons I wouldn't like to actually publish the simple RDF is for very disputed things. Like, for example, if you think about the number of incidents during wars or something like that, things where there is a lot of opinion about it, where people really fight about these numbers, or about, for example, the status of certain Palestinian cities or whatever. I would prefer not to have an RDF triple coming from Wikidata saying, this is the way it is. No, even if you have the caveat next to it, oh, but this is a simplified version of the truth or whatever. I would actually prefer just not to have this triple and say, only to have the reified statements saying, okay, according to the source, this is the way how it is. Which I know it makes it harder to use, but at least it makes everyone stumble when they try to use it, and when they stumble, they learn something in this case. And maybe it's a worthwhile effort to learn that you shouldn't trust this data immediately. I don't know. One more question here. Yuri?
Another question about relation to other projects.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want plans to be in some way related with the community and with the project of Wikipedia and Freebase, maybe some relation to years and comparative
So there are certain pieces of the Freebase software that I would love to reuse, but you know, they're not open source, so it makes it kind of hard. I don't see any pieces of the Wikipedia software that we could actually reuse, because we don't do the extraction. On the other hand, we are talking very closely with those communities. Why am I talking to both microphones? Yeah, we are talking very closely to the community. So Anja Jentsch, who was in the Wikipedia project, who is in the Wikipedia project, has joined us recently and is working with us. So we have more insight. We're talking with the team behind Freebase on a regular basis. we've been to the Wikipedia meetings recently and talking there, and we invite discussion over these things. We have common statements on the relationship between Wikipedia and Wikidata and all these things. So I think that we're doing every effort to actually keep those communities together, because we all have one common goal, obviously. But we are very different than Wikipedia. We're not extracting data from Wikipedias. This is not our intention, and this is not our goal. We are much more similar to Freebase. That is very true. But there we have sufficiently different requirements that warrant that we have a second project there. There's a question, Carsten? Okay.
Just a short question.
Mm-hmm.
How the plans how to do this up level be distributed? Will be part of the Wiki Commons in the future?
So you can keep it actually by an answer. Maybe you have follow-up questions. So the software will be a proper extension to MediaWiki, just as Semantic MediaWiki is. It will not be part of core. We do make some changes to core. Recently, we actually landed a 10,000 line change to core, which just went live on Wikipedia like the day before yesterday. And which was mostly done by Daniel here. The change, for example, allowed us to have different types of content in wiki pages, not just wiki text, but also have, in our case, structured data, or in the future to have things like vector images or code and so on in their specific places without having trouble, because they are different contents in fact. So there are certain changes to core that will be needed, and you will need MediaWiki 121 in order to run the Wikibase extension on top of it. But in short, it will be a proper extension, which will be distributed as an extension, just as Semantic MediaWiki is. And there will be a number of extensions that we rely on, like the data values extension, like the universal language selector, and similar things to work properly. And just to state the very obvious, it will all be open source, GPL, and published by the MediaWiki Foundation. I think that Jeroen is running it as such a test installation. There should be no problems with having that. Sometimes we do stumble into small errors, like, for example, naming special pages the same way or whatever, but we fix those things then again. So we want to make it possible to run it in the same installation, but that doesn't mean that the data coexist in the same space. We currently didn't think much about what this could mean, but I think that Markus wants to say something. He's positioning himself in a way that he wants to add something.
Yeah, I mean, partly this is also what we want to have the next question, what is the future of semantic MediaWiki? And of course, first of all, it should be able to coexist with the very idea of content handlers, that you are able to have different types of content in different namespaces. And